A thunderous crash echoed through the silent dormitory hallway. The sound of splintering wood was followed by a sudden, blinding flash of light. Someone had smashed the fire alarm. Panic erupted like wildfire. Girls screamed and bolted from their rooms, some slipping and falling on the cold tile floors as the piercing alarm tore through the night. Shouts of "Fire! Fire!" mingled with frantic footsteps and the sharp clatter of hurried voices. The emergency lights flickered erratically, casting long, jagged shadows across the peeling walls. Somewhere, a window exploded, scattering shards like rain. Amid the chaos, two pairs of eyes locked in the dim corridor, fury and fear burning hot. In the madness, Amaran Zhao yanked her blanket tighter around her shoulders, sprinting down the hall. Her polished shoes barely touched the floor as she surged ahead, heart pounding. She had no time to think about why the alarm had gone off, only that this night was already spiraling out of control. The chaos threatened to undo the carefully crafted image she held of herself. Rich, untouchable, above it all. At the opposite end, Zolambeki stumbled out of her room, the thin blanket barely covering her frame. Her breath came fast, her mind racing to make sense of the noise and the smoke smell drifting in from the windows. The boarding school was supposed to be a place of refuge, a chance to escape the dust and poverty of her village. But tonight, it felt more like a trap. Their paths collided violently near the stairwell. Amara barreled into Zola, sending the younger girl sprawling. "Watch it!" Amara hissed, eyes blazing. Zola scrambled up, glaring back. "Maybe you should watch where you're going, rich girl." The tension between them crackled like live wires. But before their argument could explode, a teacher's voice rang out, cutting through the pandemonium. "Everyone out! No stopping, no talking! Move!" The students were herded toward the assembly field, the cool night air heavy with smoke and fear. But inside, a storm of a different kind was brewing, one that no fire alarm could contain. Nkwe Boarding School, perched on the outskirts of Nairobi, was a place of contrasts. Old colonial buildings with peeling paint stood beside newly built dormitories shimmering under the city lights. Here, the elite and the struggling met in uneasy coexistence, their worlds separated by walls, whispered insults, and social codes as rigid as iron bars. Amaran Zhao's world was polished and controlled. The only daughter of a wealthy industrialist, she had grown up surrounded by privilege and expectation. Nkwe was a stepping stone, prestigious and exclusive. She had been fiercely protective of her status, viewing the scholarship students with thinly veiled contempt. Zolambeki was different. A scholarship student from a small village hundreds of kilometers away, she was fierce in her quiet way. Nkwe was her ticket to a better life, a path out of poverty that she would protect with every ounce of her being. But nothing had prepared her for the hostility that greeted her, especially from her new roommate. Days after the alarm, the headmaster's announcement came like a thunderclap. To promote unity and understanding, from this term onward, we shall be assigning students from different social classes as roommates, he declared in the school hall, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. Amaran Zhao and Zolambeki will share dormitory room 17. A stunned silence followed. Amara's eyes narrowed. "This must be a joke," she whispered to Lillian, her closest friend. Lillian laughed coldly. "No joke. This is your new reality, Zhao." Zola exchanged a brief, tense glance with her friend Mumbai, who whispered, "Keep your guard up. This will not be easy." The night they moved in, the small dorm room became a battleground. Amara arranged her designer clothes and cosmetics with precision, leaving no space for Zola's humble belongings. Zola, meanwhile, kept her side minimal. Textbooks stacked, a faded family photo tucked in the corner. "Don't touch my charger again," Amara snapped, catching Zola using it without asking. Zola rolled her eyes. If you cared about your precious gadgets, you wouldn't leave them lying around. The words hung heavy in the air like a challenge. Mrs. Kamau, the dorm supervisor, knocked sharply on the door. Enough! You're here to learn and live together. End this childish feud. Neither girl backed down, but an unspoken truth settled between them. This forced proximity would change everything. Outside the window, the city lights of Nairobi twinkled like distant stars, indifferent to the storm raging within Nkwe's walls. Daniel Mwangi, the senior prefect and school heartthrob, watched from afar, intrigued by the fire he saw in both girls. Later, under the ancient fig tree, Daniel approached Zola. "You're tougher than you look. Keep your head up," he said softly before walking away. Amara's friends whispered in the halls, plotting how to maintain their social dominance. The fire alarm had been just the beginning. Nkwe was about to witness a battle that went beyond social class. A battle for hearts, loyalty, and secrets that could shatter lives. And in the darkness of that first chaotic night, neither Amara nor Zola realized that their rivalry was the spark to a fire far greater than the one in the dormitory. The sun rose sluggishly over Nkwe Boarding School, casting a golden haze over the red-tiled roofs and cracked pavements. The air smelled of dust and wet grass, a faint reminder of last night's rain. But inside dorm room 17, the atmosphere was far from serene. Amara Njau sat rigid on her neatly made bed, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the window as if willing the world to disappear. Across the cramped room, Zola Mbeki packed her few belongings into a battered backpack, moving with practiced efficiency. Neither spoke, but the silence was thick, heavy with resentment and unspoken accusations. "Don't expect me to be your maid," Amara finally spat, breaking the quiet. Zola stopped, fingers tightening on her bag strap. "And don't expect me to grovel because you're rich." Amara's laugh was cold, sharp like a blade. "You think money makes me evil? You wouldn't last a day in my world." Zola's gaze hardened. "My world may be different, but it's no less real than yours. At least I know the value of hard work." Their words struck like thunder, but before tempers could flare again, the classroom bell rang through the school grounds, snapping them back to reality. Nkwe Boarding School was a microcosm of society. From the gleaming dining hall where silver cutlery clinked against fine china, to the dusty classrooms where the scholarship students studied by flickering fluorescent lights, the divisions were impossible to ignore. Amara's friends, Lillian and Sarah, were already gathering whispers about the village girl, invading their space. "You really think she belongs here?" Sarah sneered as they walked to class, flanked by their usual entourage. Lillian shrugged, tossing her perfectly styled hair. "Not for long. We'll make sure she knows her place." Meanwhile, in the back row of their classroom, Zola sat quietly beside Mumbai and a few other scholarship friends. "Ignore them," Mumbai whispered. "They don't understand what Nkwe means to us." But Zola felt a fire burning within her, a stubborn refusal to be crushed. That evening, a school event brought students together in the courtyard. The annual cultural festival was meant to celebrate diversity, but for Amara and Zola, it was a tense battlefield. Amara, dressed in a sleek designer dress, moved confidently among the crowds, laughter like music spilling from her lips. Her social circle clustered around her like a protective shield. Zola, in a simple traditional dress gifted by her mother, observed from the edges. The music and dance reminded her of home, but here it felt fragile, almost like a performance for others to judge. Their eyes met across the crowd, a silent challenge, and in that moment, a ripple of electricity passed between them. Back in their room that night, the tension was unbearable. I don't know how you expect us to get along, Amara said bitterly. Our worlds are too different. Zola sat on her bed, her voice quiet but steady. Maybe that's why we need each other. Maybe we're both prisoners of this system. Amara stared, surprised by the honesty. For a moment, the walls between them seemed to crack. But the fragile truce shattered as the door creaked open. Lillian's sharp voice sliced through the silence. Room service is here, she sneered, tossing a note on Amara's desk. Thought you'd want to see what your friend wrote. Amara unfolded the note, her eyes widening as she read Zola's name scrawled beneath a message hinting at something more. An invitation to meet secretly. Zola's cheeks flushed with anger and fear. How did you get that? Amara's gaze was icy. It doesn't matter. I'll be watching. Outside their door, whispers grew like wildfire. The rumor mill churned, fueled by suspicion and malice. Daniel Mwangi, aware of the brewing storm, approached Zola under the flickering hallway light. Be careful. People are watching, waiting. Zola nodded, a mix of fear and determination in her eyes. Let them watch. I'm not hiding. But deep down, both girls sensed the fragile line they were about to cross. A line that could bind them in friendship or destroy them both. Nkwe's corridors buzzed with quiet whispers and furtive glances. The walls seemed to pulse with rumor and suspicion. Each word passed like a spark threatening to ignite a wildfire. For Amar Njau and Zolambeki, the forced proximity of dorm room 17 had become a powder keg, and every step felt like a gamble. That morning, as the sun cut through the dusty classroom windows, Amara sat primly at her desk, her posture rigid as steel. The note she had intercepted lingered in her mind like a secret blade. Who had written it? Why? And what did Zola hope to gain? Zola, for her part, carried herself with a quiet defiance. She refused to be the villain in this story, though the school was eager to cast her as one. Her few close friends urged caution, but Zola's heart whispered otherwise. In the dining hall, the two worlds collided again. Amara's table was a fortress of polished silverware and whispered schemes. Zola's was modest, but vibrant with laughter and warmth. Lillian leaned toward Amara, voice low but sharp. If you want to keep your status, you need to shut that girl down. Amara's eyes flashed. I'm not scared of her. Just then, Daniel Mwangi appeared, sliding into the seat beside Amara with a casual grin. You're both playing a dangerous game, he said, eyes flicking toward Zola's table. This school changes people, sometimes in ways you never expect. Amara gave him a tight smile. Maybe I'm ready for change. Daniel's gaze lingered on her, unreadable. Later that day, Zola found herself alone in the school's old library, a sanctuary of musty books and quiet shadows. As she traced her fingers along the spines, footsteps approached. Zola! She looked up to see Amara standing in the doorway, an unreadable expression on her face. What do you want? Zola asked cautiously. Amara stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. Maybe we don't have to be enemies. Zola's surprise flickered. You mean that? Amara shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of fighting. The air between them shifted, charged with unspoken truths. Their fragile truce was tested that evening when Lillian barged into their room, brandishing a phone. Look what I found, she sneered, playing a video of Zola and Amara laughing together in the courtyard. Scandalous, isn't it? Zola's face flushed, but Amara's reaction was colder than ice. We control the narrative, Amara said, her voice low and dangerous. Let's make sure it's our story. That night, as the dormitory lights dimmed and the school settled into uneasy silence, Amara and Zola lay awake, the weight of their secret beginning to bend the rigid lines between them. Outside, The distant city lights blinked like stars, indifferent to the storm brewing within Nkwe's walls. A storm that promised to shatter more than just social divides. The early morning mist clung to Nkwe's sprawling grounds, softening the jagged edges of the red brick buildings. Birds sang tentatively as the school stirred awake, but inside dorm room 17, a different kind of dawn broke, one heavy with whispered secrets and stolen glances. Amara lay on her bed, eyes closed but mind racing. The line between hatred and something dangerously close to friendship had blurred overnight. She couldn't deny it. The way Zola's laugh had lingered in her thoughts, or how their accidental touches felt electric, sparking a confusion she wasn't ready to confront. Yet outside, the rigid walls of social expectation pressed hard. At Nkwe, where status was currency and reputation a fragile glass dome, any hint of weakness or difference was mercilessly exploited. Breakfast was a battlefield. Amara sat stiffly with Lillian and Sarah, their eyes darting toward Zola, who ate quietly with Mumbai. The air crackled with tension, the silent war of stares and side comments almost audible. "Did you hear?" Sarah whispered. "There's talk that Njao and Becky were seen alone after lights out." Lillian scoffed. "That's just fuel for the gossip flames. But if it's true, the fallout could be catastrophic." Amara's jaw tightened. "Let them talk. We control what matters." But inside, a knot of fear twisted. In Nkwe's closed ecosystem, rumors spread like wildfire, threatening to consume those caught in the blaze. Later, under the sprawling branches of the ancient fig tree, Daniel approached Zola. "You know how this place works," he said quietly. "Once people pick a target, there's no mercy." Zola met his gaze steadily. "Then I won't give them anything." Daniel sighed, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. "Just remember, you're not alone."